My guest this week is Michael Layne Heath. Michael's a writer, poet, and music journalist based in San Francisco. Born and raised in suburban Maryland, he has been writing about music since 1977, when he founded Washington, D.C.'s first punk new wave fanzine, Vintage Violence, which ran for 6 issues during 1977 and 1978. He later went on to contribute to other local D.C. fanzines, such as The Infiltrator and Truly Needy. Moving to the Bay Area in the early 90s, Michael has since written for any number of music magazines, both hard copy and online, and most recently for Perfect Sounds Forever and the LA-based Record Collector News. But Michael also compiled and curated My Week Beats Your Year, Encounters with Lou Reed, which was edited by Pat Thompson and published by Los Angeles publisher Hat and Beard Press. And its paperback edition is out now as well. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Michael Layne Heath. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, it's so good to see you.
Nice to be seen.
Yes, I know. So we got to start at the beginning. I have such a soft spot for anyone who created a fanzine or a fan club, whether it's like Luther Vandross running the Patti LaBelle fan club or Kid Congo Powers running the West Coast wing of, the Ramones fan club.
Right.
Or watching the Pee Wee documentary and learning that the person who played Mailman Mike was doing the Pee Wee, fan club. What was going on in DC that made you want to create the first fanzine for that scene in 77?
Just everything that was going on that I was reading about going on in New York and London, and then later Los Angeles, and then also these kind of bubbling under scenes that were going on that were being covered in mags like Trouser Press, out of the places like Cleveland,
Sure.
the whole Perubu crowd, and then Toronto with the Teenage Head and the Vile Tones, and it was all getting reported, and then I discovered Sniffin' Glue magazine, and
Sniffing Glue was from where?
London.
London, okay.
Yeah, the very first British punk zine, started by Mark Perry, and it was pretty much on the cheap, done just like Xeroxed and photocopied and typed out with a little kitty typewriter, typing out all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I was in my freshman year at the University of Maryland at the time, and I was just so inspired by all of that was going on. I submitted an article I did this kind of overview of what was going on as far as like the punk scene around the world, and submitted to the daily newspaper, and they took a pass on it, saying that punk was a fad, it's going to be over in 6 months. And then I took it over to, they had a monthly arts and media supplement called the Argus, and I took it to them thinking that because they were pretty hip, and they took a pass too. And I just,
wow.
I thought, if anybody's going to do it, I might as well. So typed out a bunch of stuff on mimeograph paper, and snuck into one of the faculty printing rooms and ran off about 100 copies, and just started from there.
Yeah, I love that the cover is like hand drawn, and it's like where the eye would be in Vintage Violence and Violence. It's changed to an anarchy sign for the dot, and then it says on the cover, Ramones, Bowie's new change.
Yep.
Manzura and Eno, Split Ends, Flaming Groovies, British punk bands, DC bands, Stiff Records, and a lot of bad KRAZEENESS, which was so in the spirit of the time.
I was a Hunter Thompson fan, so
yes,
it comes from.
Well, it's amazing. I can't speak for you, but for myself, I read about bands before hearing them. That was where I learned about bands, was reading those things you're talking about.
Yeah, I read about television like 2 years before Little Johnny Jewel came out. And there was a mag called Rock Scene that was kind of like a 16 magazine, a hipper version of 16 magazine. It was all photos, and they had an article. This is like Summers picked up a copy of Summer '74, and there was a feature article about television written by none other than Patti Smith, and which totally fascinated me. And so I had course, I had to wait another 2 years for Johnny Jewel to come out. But
I know, isn't that weird? And then you write kind of the songs and you kind of just create a band in your head. Like
Yeah,
you're like,
definitely.
I've read about this, I've seen pictures of them. I can't even fathom what this sounds like except through descriptive ways.
Definitely. Same with the Ramones too. The first article I ever read about them was um, in Hit Parader. It was, and Richard Hell interviewed them
That's
for Hit Parader. And it definitely conjured up some, mental images and mental sonic images in my head even before hearing them.
yeah, absolutely. So what was going on in the DC scene like in 77, 78 that you were reporting on?
There was a band that I read about in Trouser Press magazine called the Slickee Boys. That were this kind of nouveau garage rock band playing all manner of British invasion era and sort of mid 60s American garage nuggets, as it were. And they were playing just about any place they could, and they ended up inspiring other people, including people who ended up in a band called The Look, which featured a guy named Howard Wolfing on bass, who was a local music writer. And then this other group that had been around a few years previous that had taken a kind of a hiatus came back on the scene, a band called Razz, which was our analog to bands like the Flaming Groovies.
It
And
was Tommy Keene, right?
yep, he
Yeah,
was in a later iteration of the band. Yeah.
right.
And in fact, there's a really excellent documentary that hopefully is going to come out.
Yes, Jeff
Uh,
Krulik.
Jeff Krulik's documentary, and also there is a whenever they show it, there is a 3 CD retrospective career retrospective box set CD of collects all of their music and studio performances, radio air checks, live performances.
Yeah.
And if it's hopefully not going to jinx it, I have actually been in discussions with a guy who runs a label called Hozak Records
Oh
to
yeah, great
try
label.
to hopefully put it out in some form.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, they I had not heard them. Tommy Keene was in my touring band with Robert Pollard for Boston Spaceships.
Yes, yeah,
And so Tommy's stories were incredible because not, just as a child having access, it sounded like in DC bands came through, like big bands. He'd be like, I saw T Rex, I saw Sparks, he just saw all these things, Roxy Music, that just weren't necessarily going to make it to the
and he
Northwest.
has a famous story about seeing the Stooges open for Mott the Hoople at
Yes.
the Kent Reed Center. Has he told you that story?
Oh, yeah, he did. He was amazing because I would just go, Tommy, did you see Split Ends? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. They opened for Thin Lizzy. Just the weirdest combinations, right?
Right.
Like the strangest shows. But yeah, he was amazing. And so I had not heard of Raz till, I got to know him. But yeah, that would be amazing if it gets a wider release because I know that the people in DC really celebrated them.
They were worth celebrating, and it's unfortunate that they didn't break out of DC
Yeah.
East Coast.
So what made you want to like wrap up a fanzine at that time?
Just evolving tastes. I wasn't particularly taken with the early hardcore crowd much. Um, and my tastes were evolving. And Rob Kennedy, who was the co-editor of Vintage Violence, was also a musician and started pursuing in earnest that uh, avocation with his band, the Chumps. And so it just kind of just ran its course, really.
Right.
But I ended up still, I kept up with writing. I wrote, there was a excellent zine that came out just in the wake of VV called The Infiltrator, and I used to write for them. In fact, I would do flyers for them as well. There's a very famous concert that the Cramps played in February of '79 at Georgetown University. That a lot of it was sort of our equivalent to the Manchester performance by the Sex Pistols, and all these people who ended up in bands went to that show. and I handed out flyers for the first issue of The Infiltrator.
I love hearing about those Ground Zero shows because about 10,000 people say they were there when it was probably like 80.
And yeah, well, in fact, there is a book about the Manchester Sex Pistols performance called "I Swear I Was There."
Yes, exactly. I know that. Well, you had a fanzine called Vintage Violence, obviously John Cale reference. We're
Very
going to
much.
talk about Songs for Drella, the Lou Reed John Cale record and film that was made with it. Where did you, like, how early were you following the Velvets, and where did that come into your life?
Well, first immediate memory is hearing there was on the local commercial freeform FM rock station out of Bethesda, Maryland, that broadcast across Maryland, DC, Virginia, called WHFS, back around 70, 71 ish. They would play cuts from Loaded, specifically Sweet Jane and Rock and Roll. And I got hip to them through that. And then became aware of Lou Reed's solo career, and Rock and Roll Animal was, well, you can get away from Walk on the Wild Side for one thing, all over AM radio and elsewhere. But then Rock and Roll Animal came out, and I was in high school by then, and that was a very impactful record.
And when did John Cale's solo work cut through? Because I was way late to John Cale's solo work.
I read about him in Creem Magazine around 74, 75. There was a really great feature article that they would print a lot of stuff from British magazines like the NME and Melody Maker, and they reprinted this one thing. I think it was in NME, of an interview with Cale, kind of like giving like a little thumbnail brief of his career with the Velvets, doing record production for people like the Stooges and what have you. But the centerpiece of the article was him in the process of recording the Fear album,
Oh, wow.
and Eno was there taking coffee around to everybody in the studio, and as it happens, out of nowhere, this actor, Doug McClure, who was the star of this TV show Western called The Virginian, comes through the back door of the studio. He was doing a movie, and he was like out on the town with some friends, and they were having a few pops, and they happened to wander through this alley. And I guess he heard music, and he just wandered through the back door with his friend and said, "Hi, we're just here, just heard what was going on. Can we sit?" And Eno goes, "Okay, go ahead and sit over there." And Chrissie Hynde was there as well, hanging out, and very. Meanwhile, Cale is doing all this manic stuff. He starts banging out Deutschland über alles, and Doug McClure and Chrissie are looking at each other, going, "What?" Strange, but it was enticing, and so and then uh, shortly after that, the non-commercial freeform rock station, which was WGTB, which broadcast out of Georgetown University. I would sit up late at night and listen to them, and they'd be playing. You could tune in them at like 2 a.m. and they'd be playing like Klaus Schultz and Tangerine Dream and stuff. But then there was one particular night they played Gun for Fear, and just blew my head off.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones I heard too, and I was like, what have I been doing? Like, get with it.
Yeah. And then later, some other DJ maybe a week later played Ship of Fools from the same album. And we had a couple of really excellent record stores in the Maryland, DC area at the time that carried, and this is something that maybe people, maybe under the age of 30 these days, might not even be aware of. We used to have all these cool record stores would have import bins, British import albums, and later on when punk came along, singles. And I just happened to find Fear in their import bin, and then played it to death, and then followed it when Slow Dazzle came out shortly thereafter, and played that to death, and then went back, and that's where I found vintage violence, and
Right.
that it all kind of circles around to that.
Well, I have a question about your book, My Week Beats Your Year. Lou Reed is arguably one of the greatest interviewees you could ever have. Maybe next to Marquis Smith, they're kind of tied for giving out a certain energy. And when I was talking to Paul Hanley of The Fall, he said that Mark treated interviews like an art piece, like lyrics. He was like, I don't want to be boring. I'm going to be confrontational. I'm going to take no nonsense. I'm going to make it so that the readers are going to be endlessly entertained, because otherwise they're just going to keep coming to me for the same shit over and over again. Do you feel, from putting this book together, do you have a sense of why Lou kind of behaved the way he did with journalists?
Well, first of all, it might have depended on whatever drugs he was on at the time.
True. Same with Mark.
Yeah, very true. But no, he learned at the feet of a master of that sort of thing, Warhol. The way he would treat, like you say, as an extension of his art, and his creativity. It all depended on who, really depended on who he was being interviewed by, and how knowledgeable they were or lack thereof, and so you would act and treat them accordingly.
It's also interesting because Lou Reed could have just said, I'm not doing press, right? He seemed to say yes to so much.
And he certainly had every right to maybe decide that, especially with the pasting that Berlin got by the critics for the most part.
Right. So, Michael, will you indulge me? Can we act out one of the interviews from your book? The Australian Press, Part 1. This was basically Lou Reed being recorded at the Sydney airport in Australia, August 14th, 1974. Would you like to be press, or would you like to be Lou Reed?
I'll be Lou.
Okay, cool.
I'll do my best.
So I'll be the members of the Australian Press Corps.
Okay.
All right.
Go for it.
Everybody, if you're following along, it's page 89. You said a little while ago that you sing mainly about drugs. Is that right?
Sometimes.
Why do you do this?
Because I think the government is plotting against me.
Much laughter. You like singing about drugs. Is this because you like taking drugs yourself?
No, because I can't carry when I go through customs. I figured somebody in the audience.
Were you searched by customs men for drugs?
Oh, no, because I don't take them.
No drugs at all?
Uh-uh.
And yet you sing about them.
I'm high on life.
Do you want people to take drugs themselves? Is this perhaps why you sing about drugs?
Oh, yeah, I want them to take drugs.
Why is this?
Because it's better than Monopoly.
Why do you think your music is popular, Lou?
I didn't know it was popular.
You've got 2 sellouts in Sydney before you even came here. So it's popular, apparently.
I didn't know that.
Lou, do you think it's a decadent society we're living in?
No.
Would you describe yourself as a decadent person?
No.
How would you describe yourself?
Average.
It's said in your press release that we were given this morning that you like lying to the press. Why is this, and are you doing it now?
I didn't say that. The release did.
Is it true?
No.
Is your antisocial behavior just part of your show business gimmick?
Antisocial behavior? What's that?
You seem very withdrawn.
Introverted, you mean?
Lou, you're a man of few words. Why is this?
I don't have anything to say.
Do you like meeting people, talking to people?
Some.
Do you like talking to us?
I don't know you.
Do you like giving press interviews in general?
No.
Do you shun publicity?
No.
Do you tend to keep to yourself?
No.
Why are you attending this one, Lou?
They told me to come in here.
There you go. That is just part of part 1. It's incredible. Like, if you go and listen to some of that stuff or watch him, he is in such control and just batting people left and right, like turning his head this way, talking to this person, turning this way. It is funny to just see people really wanting to get this, like, just I don't know what they want from Lou Reed. It's really odd. Like, what do you want from him?
I think, what was it, when he toured in 2000, he was writing these little blog posts on his official website, and he said something to the effect of, people have come up to me and they're wondering why I don't say anything between songs on this tour. I'm saying I am speaking to you. I am speaking to you through these songs, and this is, that's what I want to get. That's what's most important to me. Someone, I want you to get the feeling that there's somebody there talking right at you.
Right. Well, I feel like Songs for Drella is one of the most telling records that Lou or John made, and it's kind of amazing they made it together. It's the first reunion for both of them, made in 1990. I guess they were at a memorial service for Andy Warhol, and Julian Schnabel suggested they do a piece for Andy.
Schnabel came up to him at this reception after the memorial service and said, "We got to do something for Andy." And John said, "Well, it's a little late for that, but what do you got in mind?"
Yes. No, it's so fascinating because it was a difficult project. They ended up, by the end of it, not wanting to work with each other, and it took quite a while until the Velvet Underground reunion, and then they didn't want to work together again. But the strength of them coming together after not being together, and where they are as people, as songwriters, as lyricists, just the highest level. I mean, what was your feeling when you first heard Songs for Drella?
That it was a very heartfelt, very intense, very lyrical tribute to someone who did so much for them, Warhol. And in fact, I worked in record stores for most of the '80s around Maryland, and uh, also, which was, of course, quite the education, especially in those days. And then I was also, another thing that maybe people don't do so much these days, doing a lot of tape trading, with
Sure.
myself and various people around the country. And there's this one particular guy who was as much of a mad Lou Cale VU fan as I was. And he is, one day in 1989, I get this package in the mail from him, and it is a cassette of the first two performances, the premiere of Drella, recorded at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And I was just blown away. Just first of all, that they were, that they managed to put aside whatever differences that had encumbered them over the years, to come together and assemble this tribute to him, was more just magnificent.
Yeah, it's funny because this film is recorded live. It's a different recording than, it's not lip sync. They're not miming to the record. I had this at the video store on VHS. It took a long time for it to, find its way in any other format. And it's only been recently that it's been digitized and put up on like the Criterion channel.
Right.
So this was what I had. I had this VHS tape that I played in the video store that I was so familiar with that by the time I got the record, I kind of was like, I preferred these versions, of the recording versus what they did in the studio with this record. It was so funny. So I was wondering, was the recording that you heard at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, this kind of tape, did it markedly different than what they did later when they went in to record it?
Well, given the ambience, I've been to shows at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and they have really excellent acoustics, and the music just rang out throughout. There were some. It's funny you should mention, though, as far as changes, there were certain changes in the arrangements of the songs when they originally performed them. The most glaring example was the song "Faces and Names." John sings on the record in the performances, however, when they first performed it, Lou sang it. And then also, instead of that kind of languid, flowing, slow piano accompaniment, John had originally done this kind of forced, jaunty, almost Dixieland piano arrangement to Faces and Names. It's like ding 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 da da da, Faces and Names, wish they're all
Okay.
the same. Yeah,
I could hear that.
very disconcerting.
Yeah. Wow.
But then also the other difference was that they hadn't come up with the dream sequence when they originally performed Drella.
That is such an amazing piece. And it's so funny, for years I took, because of Andy Warhol's diaries, I just took for granted that this was taken verbatim from Andy's diary. And in a lot of the articles, or interviews, Lou just talks about, yeah, this is a fictionalized version.
In fact, when they the guy who did me the tape of the performance actually had a Xerox of the original program, and it did say "Songs for Drella," a fiction.
Yeah.
On it. So it's basically, the dream sequence. Yeah, there are bits of that are taken, kind of loosely from the Warhol diaries, talking about Lou and about John. But it's these little snippets of reality sprinkled in with the more fictionalized, dramatized aspects of it. Kind of like a musical equivalent of what Capote did in Cold Blood, in a way, kind of nonfiction novelization kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have had a song in here that was about Andy worked at a cheeseburger shop, I would have been like, oh, I didn't know that, right? It's so convincing in terms of telling what I, as a listener, was taking as a complete picture of a human being, obviously with poetic license, but the power of it, that they could put in things that they thought they had directly experienced from Warhol, things that they had hearsay about, with Warhol, things that they assumed might have happened or he would have felt like, and then just complete fabrication. It's really kind of incredible, hour of music. And the fact that this film, I'm so shocked that this film is so underseen. When I think of great concert films, it's easily in the top 5, along with Stop Making Sense and Rust Never Sleeps. I think it's beautifully done.
It puts you right there in the middle of the action, and all the the interactions, interactions, nonverbal interactions between Cale and Reed that go on during the performances of these songs.
Yeah. And I guess Ed Lockman is the director of the film. He works a lot with Todd Haynes as a cinematographer. He also did shot Desperately Seeking Susan and True Stories and The Virgin Suicides. But he didn't know where the film was until Todd Haynes started making the Velvets documentary, and Ed found a copy of it. And then it's since been digitized, like I said, in a restored version. But it was kind of lost except on this VHS thing. And I guess there's a story of Ed working with Lou shooting a promo video for Berlin, and Lou just kicking over one of the legs on the tripod, like they didn't, he was all like, okay, this is what it's going to be like. And even with this, Lou was like, I don't want to do it. And he's like,
he was adamant that he didn't want to perform it in front of a live audience.
Exactly. And he's like, okay, we'll get rid of the audience. I don't want cameras on stage. Okay, we won't do that. But this film is cool in a way, like Stop Making Sense and like Rust Never Sleeps. At times it's very distant, like you're kind of just watching from the back and you're seeing the visual accompaniment, which is gorgeous.
The
backdrops with the slides moving in and out, phasing in and out. And then there's times where you're right on John Cale and his viola screeching away, and you're right in Lou's face, and you're right in his guitar. So it's interesting that at some point they realized, okay, these songs come up, and get close. And I love that when that finally happens, it's so exciting.
There are moments where it's almost like they're grabbing you by the shoulders, metaphorically speaking, and songs like Images and Work in particular have that effect on me. They're just so insistent and so driving and intense. It's a marvelous thing to witness.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, they basically, a lot of these songs start with them having a glance, nodding, ready to go. And you can just, there's one point where like John Cale cracks a little bit of a smile, Lou doesn't. You're like, okay, I'm already feeling like he tried, like,
Right.
but let's just get to work. There's obviously a massive respect for each other, but there's not a love there that is going to come out of them in this performance.
But those moments when they are kind of connecting make it all that much more worthwhile, I think.
From the first song, Small Town, John Cale hits a piano. You're like, that's John Cale. Like 2 hits, and you're like, John Cale has a certain way he pounds on a piano if he's doing a certain type of staccato thing.
Right.
And Lou, the cool thing about this film is you get to see Lou at his most fragile as a guitar player and also at his most sharp. And I think and because it's just the two of them, you're really given a chance to see what an extraordinary, inventive guitar player Lou Reed is.
I would say so. There are, as you say, moments of real delicacy. Some of the quieter songs like was it Slip Away, Hello, It's Me, and then turning on the old ostrich guitar for songs like Images and I Believe, which was about the attempted assassination by Valerie Solanas, and that's that's a very, very intense, just wonderful performance.
Yeah, and lyrically, it's incredible because Lou is just like, it's a very eye for an eye lyrical song. He's like, it's a travesty she's alive, what she did, and it's like violence for violence.
And then there's that moment of fragility at the end of the song where he's kind of echoing Warhol, bemoaning the fact that he didn't come to visit him in the hospital.
Yeah, visit me. Why didn't you come visit? It's just like so heart-wrenching. He was so poetic with his bluntness. It's just amazing. But the song that really made me realize that this was going to be a masterwork is the second song, Open House. Is just, that song destroys me all the time. Just the chords in it is just, it's so gorgeous and dark and haunted. And the way that the synth drone is going through it, and the images of Nico and the factory are slowly fading in on each other. And then Lou, just lyrics about Warhol being like, my skin's as pale as outdoors moon. My hair's silver like a Tiffany watch. Fly me to the moon, fly me to a star. But there are no stars in the New York sky. They're all on the ground.
On the ground. Yes.
It's just like, fuck. I mean, it gives me chills just to read that.
Especially that one last bit where Cale comes in with that little bit of a harmony.
Yeah, fly me to the moon. Yeah, it's just, again, the shame is that, well, maybe it's not the shame. It is beautiful that maybe they didn't together have missteps. Like, they had a perfect run together with the Velvets. They had a perfect run together with this record. They did a short run with the Velvet Underground live, and then like, we're done. But just, this is also the period where Lou Reed is, New York's come out. He's a star. Like, he's, on MTV, he's on the radio, he's selling records.
And Honda motorcycles.
Exactly. Yeah. That's another thing I loved in your book. There's an article, there's an interview where somebody asks them about the motorcycles. Oh, I have it here. This is great. This is perfect. So somebody asked Lou, this is in, let's see. This is Hits Magazine, February 6, 1989, page 225 if anyone's playing along with the book. Somebody says, is it the political nature of New York meant to counteract critics of your Honda and American Express ads? And he says, by the way, that's a personal question, but I'll answer it this once. I do some things outside because it affords me a certain freedom with the records. I can't live in an ivory tower like people would like me to. I've got to grab money here and there so that my albums can maintain a certain integrity and purity. My records, except for the fluke of Walk on the Wild Side, have never been successfully commercial. People have to understand what it's like to put out pure records as best as I can without having any real hits. I got that from Andy a long time ago. It's just one more tool to use. I don't think of it in terms of bullshit like he's selling out. I used to watch Andy do something for TV Guide or Absolute Vodka so that he would be able to put out our Exploding Plastic Inevitable show. When our equipment broke, that's how it got replaced. We didn't turn around and tell Andy we can't touch that money because it came from doing a commercial. I don't think that occurred as to anybody. I'm just interested in putting out my vision as purely as possible, and anything legal I can do to facilitate that is fair game.
Well said. In fact, funny you mentioned Walk on the Wild Side. The first time, I only ever saw Lou twice. The first time was in October 1984 at DAR Constitution Hall in DC, and notable for the fact that Robert Quine was in the band, which was absolute thrill. But at one point, before he plays Walk on the Wild Side, he says something like, this next song is something that made possible for her to survive most of the 70s.
I know, it's yeah, but it's so funny. This piece of work is about a singular person, like somebody whose brain and work ethic and the little things that made him who he is. You know, he's talking about how he's having to, people are like, you need to change the factory. You can't just have people coming in and
slip away.
Yeah. And, or the fact that, like, you know, just how he would tell Lou, which he's talked about in interviews, even beyond the song work from this film and album, you know, he'd just be like, how many songs do you write? You know, I lied. I'd written 0. I lied and said 10. You won't be young forever. You should have written 15. It's work. You just get these things that, like, when I went to the Warhol Museum, that stuff is just coming off the walls or off the screen as you're watching it. But to have, like, this kind of inside look at Andy in such a lyrical way instead of like an interview way or a, you know, like a TV crew there or him on MTV
or a straight biopic kind of.
Yeah, exactly. There's something about the way that these two people who loved Andy, loved him, even though they had difficulties showing their love. It is I don't know the best way to say it, but it is kind of an interesting three-way love story that's full of heartbreak and pain and misunderstanding. Again, if you haven't heard this record or you haven't seen this film, I really recommend seeing the film that's up on Criterion right now if you have the Criterion channel. I cannot watch it without crying.
It's a pretty moving experience to see it and to hear it. And Cale, as Cale once said, it was their way of presenting a story of how misfits get together and create what becomes great art, which is something I relate to.
Yes. But is there anything in the film or this record that you feel doesn't hit the target for you, either artistically or emotionally?
Not really. No, I think it all fits together as a single piece and holds together very well. You get, you know, the more delicate, softer tunes they kind of like show off what was going on in the guy's life and in his mind. Things like songs like "Slip Away." In fact, there's a really great, almost poetic bit at the end of that song where he says, they say the factory must change," and the song fades out, and it goes, "But I don't." And I always took that kind of a double meaning to that. The "I don't" meaning I don't have to change, or I don't think the factory should change.
No, absolutely. And again, so brief in some of its language. Like I said, it could be so painterly, and then it can be just blunt. And that's what I love about it. I did want to focus on 3 songs and 3 parts from the film with you, if that's okay.
Sure.
First, I want to talk about Images, which is like the change in the film where we're, like I mentioned, we're very close to them. And it's the first song that's very velvety. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a droning riff, very fast on the viola from John Cale. And it's like,
Giving it some of that Black Angel's Death song vibe.
absolutely. Lou Reed's playing one chord, it has one change in it, and it feels like it's barely holding on. Like they're barely able to keep up with the tempo of it, the energy of it, and the camera's moving back and forth between them.
Breakless Train.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm no urban idiot savant spewing paint without any order. I'm no sphinx, no mystery enigma. What I paint is very ordinary. I don't think I'm old or modern. I don't think I'm thinking. It doesn't matter what I'm thinking. It's the images that are worth repeating. Images, images, images. And in the meantime, it's like, that is such an exciting moment on the record. But to see it live again is like the closest I've ever gotten to either of these heroes of mine, even on performance footage.
Very much so. It is certainly one of the more intense moments of the piece, and something that just like I said before, just like comes at you and is relentless and won't let you look away or just let you be distracted by anything. But just that sound and that drone and Cale giving it loads and Reed spewing, Warhol's inner philosophy kind of thing.
But then you have A Dream, which is a spoken lyric song by John Cale that I assumed were really Andy's words, but then I found out that Lou wrote it. And I found a quote where he said, it was John's idea. He said, why don't we do a short story like The Gift? But then he goes off to Europe. He goes off to Europe saying, hey, Lou, go write a short story. But I thought, no, not a short story. Let's make it a dream. That way, we can have Andy do anything we want. Time and dimension of reality won't matter because it's a dream. We can have him go anywhere, do anything, and not worry about the facts. So I thought this dream idea was the way to go. And let me tell you, man, it was really hard to do. But once I got into Andy's tone of voice, I was able to write for a long time that way. I got to where I was able to, just zip, zip, zip away just because I really like that tone so much. It's certainly not my tone of voice at all. I really don't talk that way. I had to make myself get into that way of talking.
Very similar approach to how the people who basically ghostwrit Andy's philosophy book took the kind of tack that they took. They would, Bob Colacello specifically talked about how he would just will himself into becoming Andy's and doing his best to, from all the interactions he'd ever had up to that point with Andy in the course of working at the factory and working on Interview Magazine, and just willed himself into taking on that voice and speaking and philosophizing, as it were, the way that Warhol would. And this is definitely, it definitely works in the case of A Dream, for sure.
Yeah, and it's painful. It's about, John not trusting Andy's vision when he asks him to help him with the album art. And it's about Lou giving Andy the cold shoulder. And there's that part where it says, and then I saw Lou, I'm so mad at him. Lou Reed got married and didn't invite me. I mean, is it because he thought I'd bring too many people? I don't get it. Could he have at least called? I mean, he's doing so great. Why doesn't he call me? I saw him at the MTV show, and he was one row away, and he didn't even say hello. I don't get it. You know, I hate Lou. I really do. He won't even hire us for his videos, and I was so proud of him. It's like Lou is getting a chance to like apologize, be the brunt of, something he regrets. Like he gets to do all the facets in this brilliant way by having Andy speak to him.
And that's by extension, what the whole piece is about, really, is his way of paying tribute and then also trying to make amends and apologize and let his true feelings and let his heart show for all about Warhol.
Yeah, it made me wonder if like maybe this was harder to do than it seemed from the outside.
Certainly, I would say so. But what does they say that like it's the sand that gets the pearl, that creates the pearl, and Lou and John were no different.
Yeah, and the film and the album ends with "Hello, It's Me," very beautiful viola and guitar songs, and I just love. Again, it's so great. There's so much variety in a Lou Reed song. The way he decides to break up a song through syllables, like like deciding when to go fast in it and when to slow it down, is just awe-inspiring. And I feel like very few people excelled as well as he did.
He had a great sense of meter.
Yes.
Something he passed on, which is something he in a way passed on to Jonathan Richman.
Yeah, totally. And I love you. It's like, I love to watch you draw and watch you paint, but when I last saw you, I turned away. They really hated you. Now all that's changed. But I have some resentments that can never be unmade. You hit me where it hurt. I didn't laugh. Your diaries are not a worthy epitaph. Well, now, Andy, I guess we've got to go. I wish some way, somehow, you'd like this little show. I know this is late in coming, but it's the only way I know. Hello, it's me. Good night, Andy. Goodbye, Andy. It's
heartbreaking.
It is.
And so emotional. It's such an emotional way to end the piece, really. But totally appropriate.
Yeah, and he's, talking it, like he does, and it's really conversational. And yeah, I don't know. I'm such a person who's always hid in, with my lyrics in the poetry of things. I've always been scared to be direct, and you see stuff like this, and I'm just in awe that somebody could just be this forthcoming with the warts of being Lou Reed, and I mean, he did it his whole career. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying he's not poetic. I mean, he's a master poet, but I just love, like, I would have like this, if I had written something like this about somebody, it would be all like, oh, what did you mean by the shingle of the rooftop sliding down the thing? It's like, yeah, well, but I just love that he's like, hey, I hope you've enjoyed our little show, which is so funny still, like this hour-long passionate thing. He's like, yeah, it's like the Little Rascals, right? It's like, no, like, come on, you just did this masterwork.
Let's do a show right here.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my God. So like when you're working on your book and you're spending so much time in these various years of Lou's life from early on to like when he's really getting into like martial arts and meditation and stuff like that, are you able to get a picture of like where Lou was growing in his life, and like was he giving the story of his life in a similar way just publicly?
I would say so, yeah. Certainly helped, as I said earlier, that if the person interviewing him was relatively knowledgeable about it, then the facade, the Warholian wild one, Brando, what are you rebelling against, what do you got kind of thing, came down, and he would relax and be much more forthcoming. Um, certainly, and then certainly sobriety and his interest in martial arts, certainly that uh, didn't hurt his the clarity of thought and creativity. Um, and I just, it's just really fascinating to swing from, as we did, him being combative and confrontational and contentious as he was with so many journalists, and then on the other hand, be waxing philosophical about poets and musicians like Ornette Coleman and that kind of thing. Is it's a nice blend that I try to a nice, more rounded picture of this guy as an artist and as a writer and musician. And I think I pretty much succeeded.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it's so fun. There's times where you see Lou. There's like one interviewer where he's like, "Hey, just come with me, like hang out with me," and they kind of like walk around a bit and stuff, but nothing gets done. Like she doesn't really get to crack him. But I just like that you kind of go. You never knew on any given day what Lou was going to give you. And I was always shocked when there were times when he gave a lot to people.
Quite, and I was very, which made the research, which was kind of an ongoing thing that I did as part, just personally as a fan over many years, to discover, especially these more regional magazine interviews. One particular that comes immediately to mind is this guy from Milwaukee, Bob Reitman, who did this really extensive and wide-ranging interview with him that really pulled down the pulled definitely pulled down the facade, uh, the media facade, uh, in a nice way. You mentioned, well, one of the songs that I particularly like, and I think the sequence of the whole thing, this sequencing of all the songs is quite deftly done. But the penultimate song in particular, "Forever Changed," is always been a favorite of mine because it's him reflecting on his journey from rural Pennsylvania into the city, into New York, into fame, into international jet setting kind of thing. But it's like at the same time, he's uh, conscious of the fact that he's leaving behind one life and proceeding and into another. And then by the end of it, he's talking about, my life is disappearing from view, and just for me anyway, it just kind of hits me that, like, him in the hospital,
Yeah.
after the operation, that he's feeling that this is it. And that kind of adds a slightly more, adds a rather chilling overtone to the whole thing, and the music definitely backs it up for sure. In fact, when they at the end of one of the performances, the original performances, it ends with, and it kind of hear it on the record in the movie, but this one original performance of that song ends with Lou hitting this like peeling feedback note that he just like sustained for like 5-10 seconds, and people in the audience are going nuts, and then he finally cuts it off, and it's just mind blowing.
It's so
Fantastic
incredible.
moment.
Amazing. Yeah, and it reminds me of things in his life too, in Andy's life. Like I forget that like there were periods where he wasn't hot anymore. People were like, yeah, like your art's not selling as much, you're not wanted as much.
Famous for being famous, out on the town every night.
Have you been to the Warhol Museum?
Not yet. I have friends who have, and I have family on the East Coast, and hopefully, I tend to go back east twice a year to visit my family and friends, and so I want to make time
Yeah.
during maybe the next time I'm there to trip up to Pittsburgh, right?
Yes, it is Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's amazing. And when I was there, they had a exhibit on the first Velvet Underground record. And but yeah, it starts at the top with his, advertising work and, his childhood and things like that, early drawings. He was good at it all. It was incredible. Like, and just being able to spend time with the screen tests. And there were these kind of like late night films they were making that were like variety shows in the factory that were just long running things I'd never seen, where someone would do a song and then someone would come up and do a pantomime. And it was really hard to leave that museum and go to another floor because there was so much to take in. And yeah, it's totally worth anyone going out of their way. It really, really affected me. I thought it was an incredible museum.
That's the effect it's had on people.
Michael, I want to thank you for picking this film. It's one of my favorite films that I've ever got to talk about on the show. Again, I had it at the store. I listened to it in a funny way more than I watched it because it was on a screen and I was working, right? But I fell in love with the music in it and getting to slow down, after I closed the store and, having the record and just kind of living in it in a different way. I just think that I would still say for anyone who hasn't heard it, if you can watch it first, I think it's a really great way to see two people who came up together reconnecting for a short period of time about somebody who brought them together artistically.
And making it work, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at the end of every episode, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about.
Okay.
So on a scale of 4 being the lowest and 22 being the highest, how many stop you dead in your track, bone-chilling looks at you from across the stage like you're a complete idiot from Lou Reed do you give Songs From Drella? 4 looks like that at you being the lowest, up to 22 bone-chilling looks from Lou Reed right at you from across the stage as the highest.
About 15.
15?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're wrong. It's 17, as you can see here.
Oh.
You're 2 off. But you know what? I'm going to take 2 off for being late to John Cale's career. So yeah, you're right. 15 is the correct answer. 15 bone-chilling looks from Lou Reed at you across the stage. Do you think if Lou would have gotten your book, he would have been like giving you that look or what, or throwing it at you, or what do you think he would have thought?
I shudder to think. I would have thought. I think he would have appreciated the work that went into it, and
yeah, I think so too.
And being not an expert or rock critic, I'm basically maybe a slightly more articulate, literate fan than your average rock hunter.
Yeah, I imagine Lou actually sitting down with it and reading it, and I love that the hardcover comes with the little red fabric that you can put in to keep your place. Everybody pick it up.
Hat and Beard Press. And just as an addendum, after far too long, owing to various publishing snags and things like a certain pandemic, it appears that finally the paperback version of My Weekly Tour will be coming out sometime later this year.
Amazing. Well, I'll read both side by side.
Okay.
It's a really amazing book, Michael, because it is like creating a holographic version in your skull of Lou laying down the law creatively with these people. And for me, just like Marky Smith, it goes side by side in his art. Like, you can't separate Lou, the public spokesperson who people are wanting so much from the artist. I think he loved it, and I think he would have loved this book.
And if I may add to that, all that is good about it and positive about the book and its reception isn't down to just me. I must give props to my editor, Pat Thomas, who was so encouraging, so generous in his time and helping edit the book. And then also folks at Hat and Beard Press, J.C. Gable and company for taking a chance on it. And I think we've succeeded.
All right. Well, I want you to do a Marquis Smith book for me, please.
Maybe they may happen. That may just happen.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show's a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye!